Hello and welcome to the third lesson of the topic of an introduction to the media. So our first activity today is to see how many different media industries we can think of. Now a media industry is an area of the media that makes the same kind of products. So we might think about the television industry, the music industry, maybe the gaming industry. How many can you think of? This is our title slide for this lesson, and as you can see, we're going to explore why the media exists. And our learning objective here is to learn about different types of media, who produces them, and why they are produced. In the bottom left here, you can see that we're still on our first topic, an introduction to the media, and we're on lesson 3. Have a quick read of the success criteria before we move on to the next slide. We need to start by having a little think about why audiences consume the media. Now, the reason we say the word consume rather than watch is because there's lots of media products that we don't just watch. We might listen to them, read them, or things like computer games that we actually play and interact with. So I want you to create a list of as many reasons as you can think of as why people watch films, read magazines, and play computer games. What are the uses of the media? This is a theorist slide, a slide which contains an image and the basic information about a media theorist that we need to study. So this is Dennis McQuail, and he is known for his work on mass communications, and specifically he's worked on the uses of the media. Now bear in mind, I have boiled down this man's life work on this to 2 basic sentences. So it's really important that you study the work of Dennis McQuail outside of this lesson. Do a little bit of research for yourselves online, maybe go and read some of his books or his essays that you can find online. But his general thoughts are that the media is used by the audience to fulfill their needs and desires, and that there are 4 categories of these uses, or the reasons why audiences use the media. Here you can see the 4 categories of uses that McQuail puts forward. He suggests that these 4 areas are the main things that we seek from our media consumption. So he says entertainment and diversion, relationships, identity, and surveillance are the main uses of the media, and everything else can fit under these categories. I think one of the most obvious uses of the media for audiences has to be entertainment. But of course there are many different ways in which we are entertained by the media. So we would get something different out of a horror film than, say, playing a computer game. Or we might get a different form of entertainment from watching a film than we would a documentary. So the first thing we need to look at here is the different types of entertainment that audiences might be getting from the media. For example, escapism. This is the idea of ignoring stress and escaping the kind of drudgery or reality of your life. Let's say I get home and find out my cat's been run over, my wife has left me, there's a leak in the roof, and generally it's an awful day on an awful week. So I might binge watch my entire series of my favourite show just to kind of escape the reality and not have to think about any of that for a while, and that in itself would be entertaining. Another example would be fantasizing. Now this is kind of projecting or presenting your personality, your identity, to imagine a better life. For example, we might be watching something like James Bond. Now we're not saying that I'm watching that pretending I'm James Bond, but subconsciously I'm getting to kind of live those experiences that I wouldn't be able to live in real life. I can't jump across buildings and shoot bad guys and save the day because I'm just a normal, regular human being. But when I'm watching James Bond, I can fantasize about that. And that's kind of a subconscious thing. We're not stupid enough to say that I actually think I'm them, but subconsciously we're kind of being entertained because we're fantasizing about it. Another form of entertainment might be an emotional response. So we would watch a horror film to be scared. The good thing about a horror film, of course, is that we know it's not real. We know that we're ultimately safe, even though we're absorbing ourselves in that terrifying environment, in a sense of pain or anguish or a sense of being frightened. And the emotional response, the relief, is quite entertaining. It's the same reason we might watch a love film, or we might watch something that's really quite sad and have a good cry through it. So there's many kind of emotional responses we can have to the media, but in themselves that's quite entertaining. We also need to consider why people make the media. And there are two main reasons why producers might create media products. The first one is money. Most media producers are making media products to make a profit. If a film costs £10 million to make, but it brings in 100 million, then it's well worth making that product. The second reason, the second motive people have for creating media is influence. A lot of different media products, especially things like the news, can be very influential, and the power and control that owners of these media products have might help make them more successful within society. Here you can see three big media companies and the amount of money that they generate. Looking at Disney, you can see that theme parks and films do bring in quite a lot of their money, but actually the majority of their money comes from distribution. So at the moment, that's things like Disney Plus and selling DVDs. Underneath you can see the company value. At the moment of making this lesson, Disney is worth $212 billion, with a revenue, that's income, of $75 billion a year. Their profit is only about $10 billion a year, meaning they spend roughly $65 billion a year to earn that $10 billion. Moving over and looking at Facebook, you can see that their main source of income is advertising. Facebook is valued at $550 billion, but their revenue is actually very similar to Disney. They only bring in about $70 billion a year. However, their earnings, their net profit, what they actually manage to keep from that, is about $18 billion a year, almost double Disney. That's why their company is worth almost double. Looking at Google, we can see that their company is worth $920 billion. And again, most of their income is from advertising. Their revenue, their gross profit, what they bring in is $161 billion a year, and they keep $34 billion of that, which means they spend an awful lot of money to generate that. Another reason people create the media is influence. Here you can see the political endorsement of newspapers during general elections. So roughly speaking, every 4 or 5 years we have a general election. And here on the left you can see the different newspapers, the Sun, the Express, the Daily Mail and so on. There's a few tabloids and a few broadsheets. And these newspapers are basically the ones that are the most read in the UK. If we take a look at which political party these newspapers supported in each general election, we might see some trends. Did you notice that whichever political party had the most support was the party that won the election? In fact, if you take a look, the Sun has got it right every single time. So when there's another general election, take a look and see who the Sun is supporting, because they are probably going to win. Now it's over to you. We've discussed some of the reasons the media exists for audiences and producers. So try to create a table or a spider diagram or a bullet point list that explores what types of media there are and the sector they're from and the use the audience has or the purpose the creator has. We can now start thinking about some of the issues that arise from the media. As we know, one of the reasons people create media is for influence. So therefore, maybe we should have some kind of laws and policies in place to protect audiences from the media that they see. Here we have an advert that used to be legal, but is now banned. Media regulation is the control over the media, its content and its distribution. Can you think of any ideas as why the media should be regulated? And also, who should regulate the media? Protecting audiences is the main reason we consider media regulation to be a positive thing, protecting the public interest and maintaining a fair media. But when we talk about who should regulate it, well, then we have issues. The government? But what if they're biased? What if they use it to their own agendas? What about parent groups? How many of you would be happy knowing that parents were in charge of controlling the media? So what about an independent agency, someone who doesn't stand to benefit or has no bias from the decisions they make? Take the film industry, for example. The film industry is regulated by an agency called the BBFC. Now that's the British Board of Film Classification, and they are responsible for regulating films using certificates and age ratings. If you want to release a film in this country, whether that's at the cinema or on DVD, you have to have it certified by the BBFC. So you would send them your film, they will review it, they'll write a nice report about why they gave it the age rating they gave it, and it will come with the certificate that you can see there, which is always displayed in the cinema or before the DVD begins. Now in this country, in the UK, it is illegal for someone to sell you a copy of a film if you are not of the appropriate age. The legal responsibility is on the seller, not on the audience. So if you are under 18 and you have a copy of an 18 film in your hand and you're walking down the street, that's actually perfectly legal. It's not illegal for you to watch the film. It's illegal for someone to sell you the film, and that includes the cinema. So if you went to the cinema at 15 and you wanted to watch an 18, you would legally not be allowed to do that. If you have your parent or guardian with you and they say, oh, it's fine, this is my child and I'm happy for them to see it, they still cannot let you in. It's a legal requirement. It is illegal for someone of that age to be sold that film. The computer game industry is regulated in a very similar way. The agency responsible for computer games is PEGI, the Pan-European Gaming Information Board, and they are responsible for regulating computer games, again with age ratings and content warnings. So they give you an idea of what the game might include or how the game might be played, so if it's online, for example. Again, it is illegal for someone to sell the game to an underage consumer, but it is not actually illegal for someone who is underage to play the game. That brings us to our final learning check for this lesson, and hopefully you have now a decent understanding of why the media exists, what audiences get out of it, what producers get from it, and also some of the issues that arise from the creation of the media. Can you now tackle one or several of the plenary activities in these boxes? As always, now is a great time just to check that you feel confident with the learning objective and to assess whether or not you were successful with the basic, moderate and advanced success criteria. Here we have the terminology from this lesson. It might be a great idea now to pause the video to make a note of some of this. In fact, it can be a great idea to have a separate terminology list, maybe in an Excel spreadsheet or in a separate PowerPoint altogether. If you've managed to get through everything in this lesson and you still have time to spare, here's an extension task you could try and tackle. Create a poster, leaflet or booklet which explores the reasons audiences use the media. Finally, we have some exam questions based on the knowledge and learning from this lesson. Congratulations on making it through to the end of the third lesson from our first topic, and I look forward to speaking to you again for lesson 4.